My wife flirted across the table, then said, "Doors open if you don't like it." So I walked out, and let her finally see what life without me truly looks like when I'm gone for good. After she tested me in public and dared me to leave, I chose silence, strength, and let the truth hit her hard. She stood there, barely looking at me, and just said, "Doors open if you don't like it." My entire world cracked in that moment, but I still had no idea just how far I was about to walk. It was supposed to be a date night. An ordinary Friday evening, in a trendy midtown bistro that Sophia had picked out, a place her coworkers raved about. I remember feeling a flicker of hope on the drive over, thinking maybe this was her way of reigniting something, because lately, it felt like I was the only one trying. My name is Adam. I'm 38. I work in commercial real estate. And up until that night, I genuinely believed my marriage to Sophia was solid. We'd been together for 9 years, married for 6. Our routine of bi-weekly, phone-free dinners was meant to keep us connected, a promise we'd made when life got busy. When I pulled into the parking lot, her car was already there. I walked inside, saw her at the bar, laughing with the bartender, an animated, unrestrained laugh I hadn't heard in months. It made me smile, for a second. She waved me over, and for that brief moment, everything felt normal. We found our table by the windows, ordered a bottle of red, and for about 15 minutes, it was like old times. She told me about her week, some workplace drama. I listened, asked questions, and thought, okay, maybe we're getting back to us. Then her energy shifted. She saw him. Some guy at the bar, mid-30s, business casual. My stomach dropped even before I knew why. She didn't say anything, just straightened up, tucked her hair behind her ear, a gesture I knew from when we were dating, a tell that she wanted to impress someone. I watched her eyes track him as he moved to a booth. Then she pulled out her phone, typing with a little smile that definitely wasn't for me. I asked what was funny. "Nothing," she said, "just my sister." But she angled the screen away, and that's when the first chill of something being wrong settled in. The guy looked over, made eye contact with Sophia, and gave a casual wave. Instead of introducing me, or even explaining who he was, she waved back, turning her whole body towards him, physically shutting me out. I tried to pull her back, commented on the wine, asked if she wanted to split the charcuterie board, normal date stuff. She just said, sure, without even glancing at me or the menu. Her focus was gone, glued to her phone, like she was waiting. Then he started walking towards our table. That weird tension tightened in my chest. When he reached us, Sophia's face lit up in a way I hadn't seen in months, maybe longer. "Oh my God, Leo," she exclaimed. "I didn't know you came here." They started talking like I was invisible, like I was a coat draped over the chair. I sat there, wineglass in hand, wondering if I should speak up, assert my presence. But they never acknowledged me. The longer it went on, the more invisible I felt. Leo leaned on our table, invading our space. Sophia laughed at everything he said, that high-pitched, genuine laugh she used to save for me. I couldn't remember the last time she'd laughed like that at anything I said. I tried one more time, made a joke about the menu. She barely glanced my way before turning back to Leo, asking about his consulting work. That's when I truly understood. I wasn't part of this moment. I was just there. Leo stayed for what felt like an eternity, probably 5 minutes. Not once did Sophia try to include me, or acknowledge that this was our date. When he finally said he should get back to his table, she told him they should catch up soon, with an emphasis that meant she absolutely intended to. He agreed, then walked away. The second he was gone, the energy at our table died. Sophia was still smiling, still basking in whatever high that interaction gave her. I just sat there, looking at her, really seeing her, and didn't recognize the woman across from me anymore. "Who was that?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. She said he was just someone she knew, mutual friends, no big deal. But her tone felt rehearsed, like she was guarding something. I asked if they'd dated. She rolled her eyes, hard, and said, "Relax." It wasn't reassuring. It was dismissive. That word, relax, landed wrong. It wasn't about calming me down, it was about shutting me down, making my discomfort an inconvenience to her. We sat in silence. I tried to reset, tried to salvage the night. I asked about her week again. She gave me short, distracted answers, checking her phone every 30 seconds. I felt like I was performing a monologue to an empty room. I put my fork down. "Sophia," I said, "are we good?" She looked at me like I'd asked the dumbest question on earth. "We're fine, Adam. You're overthinking." But her voice had an edge, a frustration that I was interrupting her fantasy. I didn't say anything else. Just watched her finish her wine, scroll her phone. I thought about all the times in the past year I'd felt like this, competing for her attention and losing to something I couldn't even name. The waiter asked about dessert. Sophia said no without asking me. She was tired, wanted to go home. I just nodded, paid the check, leaving a bigger tip than usual because I felt bad for him. We walked to the parking lot in silence. She was already texting someone, probably Leo. That heaviness settled in my chest, unshakable. We'd driven separately that night. Before she got into her car, she turned to me. "You know, if you're going to be weird about me talking to people, maybe you should just stay home." I stood there, trying to process it. How had this become my fault? I told her I wasn't being weird, I just wanted to spend time with us, like we planned. She laughed, not a kind laugh, a dismissive exhale. "Doors open if you don't like it." Then she got in her car and drove off, without waiting for a response. I stood there in the parking lot, keys in hand, watching her taillights disappear. Something fundamental cracked inside me. That sentence didn't hurt, it clarified everything. She wasn't fighting for us. She wasn't even acknowledging a problem. She was giving me permission to leave, like I didn't matter. Like I was optional, and always had been. I drove home that night with my hands shaking on the steering wheel, not from anger, but from a strange clarity that felt like waking from a dream. The 20-minute drive felt like hours. My mind replayed every moment from the bistro, every dismissive glance, every time she'd chosen her phone over me, every laugh she'd given Leo that she'd withheld from me. Sophia's car was already in the driveway. I sat in mine for a few minutes, trying to comprehend the feeling in my chest, the certainty that something fundamental had just broken, beyond repair. I walked inside. She was on the couch, still in her jacket, scrolling on her phone. She didn't look up. I poured myself water, waiting for her to say something, anything, about what happened. But she just sat there, in a bubble of complete indifference. I watched her, noticing things I'd ignored for months. The way she smiled at her phone, angled it away from me, seemed more alive texting than talking to me. My phone buzzed around 11. A text from her, even though we were in the same house, "You embarrassed me tonight." I stared at it, how she'd flipped the script so completely. How I'd gone from being ignored to being the problem. Another text came a minute later, "You always overreact when I talk to people. It's exhausting." I didn't respond. I knew anything I said would be twisted. I went upstairs, got ready for bed, lay there staring at the ceiling. She stayed downstairs for another hour. I could hear her laughing at something on her phone. That same laugh she'd given Leo. I realized this wasn't new. This feeling of being secondary in my own marriage. I'd just been ignoring it, because acknowledging it meant I'd have to do something. She came to bed around midnight, didn't say goodnight, just turned away and fell asleep within minutes, as if nothing was wrong. I lay there, understanding that to her, nothing was wrong. This was normal for her. This was how she saw us. I didn't sleep much. Most of the night I thought about the past year, all the plans she'd made without asking me, the conversations where she checked out, the moments I'd chased her attention and never quite caught it. I'd made excuses for her, she was stressed, every couple had phases, it would get better if I just tried harder. Around 5 a.m., I got up. Went to the spare room, where we kept our luggage, and started packing a bag. Enough clothes for a week. Moving quietly, not really caring if I woke her. I packed my laptop, important documents, my grandfather's watch. I realized I wasn't packing for a trip. I was packing to leave. Actually leave. And the thought didn't scare me the way I expected it to. I went back to our bedroom, took off my wedding ring, and set it on my nightstand next to a book I'd never finish. I looked at Sophia, sleeping peacefully, and felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no sadness, just calm acceptance. I didn't want to be here anymore. I didn't write a note, didn't leave an explanation. What was there to say that hadn't already been said in that parking lot when she told me the door was open? I grabbed my bag, my keys, my phone charger, and walked out of the house we bought together 3 years ago, the house that was supposed to be our forever home. I felt lighter with every step towards my car. I drove to my brother Caleb's place across the city, showed up at 6 a.m. He opened the door in sweatpants, confused until he saw my face and the bag. He just stepped aside to let me in, without a word. Over coffee, I told him everything, the bistro, Leo, the texts, the ring on the nightstand. He didn't try to talk me out of it, or tell me I was overreacting. He just listened, asked a few questions, then said I could stay as long as I needed. I called my office around 8 a.m., said I was taking a personal week. Then I called a lawyer Caleb recommended, a Ms. Jenkins, who had a reputation for being straightforward. I got an appointment for that afternoon. I walked into her office with my wedding ring in my pocket like evidence, laid out the situation in about 10 minutes. She asked about infidelity. I didn't know, I said. Didn't really care. I just wanted out. She nodded, like she'd heard that 100 times. We talked assets, the house, accounts. She told me to separate everything financial, protect myself before Sophia realized what was happening and tried to lock me out. She was matter of fact, no judgment, just strategic advice. I appreciated that more than I could express. I spent the rest of that day changing passwords, moving money from our joint account to a new personal one, documenting everything. It felt efficient, mechanical, like closing a business deal, not ending my marriage. Sophia called me around noon, 3 missed calls, then a voicemail, "Where are you?" "Your car is gone," annoyed, not worried. I didn't call back. Just kept working through my list. Another call at 2 o'clock, then 4 o'clock. By 6 o'clock, she was texting, "This is childish. Adam, call me back." I looked at that message and felt nothing. No guilt, no urge to explain. She told me the door was open. I walked through it. Caleb came home from work, found me on his couch with my laptop, surrounded by papers. He asked if I was okay. I told him I was better than I'd been in months, which was true. Even though everything was falling apart, it was falling apart in a direction I controlled. After Sophia's 20th call that evening, after voicemails oscillating between confusion and anger, I blocked her number. Not out of spite, but because I needed silence, space to think without her voice in my head telling me I was overreacting. I slept better that night on Caleb's couch than I had in my own bed in years. When I woke up the next morning, I felt like I'd made the first real decision for myself in a long time. Ms. Jenkins called me Saturday afternoon, said the paperwork was ready, asked if I was sure. I said yes, without hesitating. She'd have everything filed by Monday. I spent the weekend at Caleb's, didn't go back to the house, didn't respond to any attempts Sophia made to reach me through mutual friends. I could feel the weight of 9 years starting to lift. She told me the door was open. I walked through it. Now she was learning what it felt like when someone actually took her literally. The first week after I left felt like I'd been holding my breath underwater for years and finally came up for air. I stayed at Caleb's, set up a makeshift office, worked remotely, and ignored the flood of messages. Sophia had figured out I'd blocked her. She tried email, social media, even had her sister call me twice. Each attempt followed the same pattern: guilt first, then nostalgia, then anger when none of it worked. One email said, "I can't believe you're throwing away 9 years over nothing." I deleted it without finishing. She'd already shown me exactly how much those 9 years meant to her in that bistro. Another message came through a mutual friend, one of those "hey man, just checking in" texts that really meant Sophia had sent someone to check if I was wavering. I told the friend I was fine and asked them not to get involved. Ms. Jenkins called me on day 10 to say the papers were filed and Sophia had been served. She mentioned Sophia's reaction had been apparently dramatic, lots of questions about why I didn't try counseling or give her a chance to fix things. I told Ms. Jenkins that the chance to fix things was every day of our marriage before she told me the door was open. The next wave of messages shifted tactics. Suddenly, she was reflective, apologetic, saying she understood now, saying she'd been taking me for granted, saying she didn't realize how much I meant to her until I was gone. Saying we could work on it if I just came home and talked to her. I read those messages once and recognized them for what they were: not genuine change, but strategy. Words designed to get me back into a position where I could be managed and controlled. I didn't respond to any of it. Just forwarded everything to Ms. Jenkins and kept living my life in this new quiet way. That felt strange but good. Caleb asked me one night over takeout pizza if I missed her. I had to really think about it. I realized I didn't miss her. I missed the idea of what I thought we were. But that version had never actually existed except in my head. I'd been in love with potential, with the person I hoped she'd become, not the person she actually was. Work kept me busy. I had a commercial property deal closing that needed attention, and I threw myself into it, partly as distraction, but mostly because I could. Because nobody was making me feel guilty for focusing on my career or staying late. Around week 3, Sophia's mom called me, which surprised me. We'd always gotten along, and I expected her to take her daughter's side automatically. She said Sophia had given her version of events, that I'd abandoned her without explanation, left her confused and hurt. But she also said she'd been married long enough to know there were always two sides, and she wanted to hear mine. I gave her the short version: the bistro, Leo, the dismissal, the door comment. There was a long pause before she said, "That sounds like Sophia." Her tone was sad, but not surprised, like she'd been waiting for this conversation for years. She told me she'd tried to talk to her daughter about how she treated people, how she had this way of making everyone feel secondary, how she'd done the same in past relationships. She said she was sorry I'd been on the receiving end. That conversation did something to me. It validated that I wasn't crazy or oversensitive. Other people had seen what I'd been experiencing. The social fallout started slowly, then accelerated. Friends we'd shared began reaching out, asking what happened. I kept my answers simple: we wanted different things. Sophia, however, wasn't being as diplomatic. I heard through Caleb that she'd been telling people I'd had some kind of breakdown, that I'd left over a minor argument, that she was devastated and trying to get me help. The story was designed to make her look like the victim and me look unstable. Some people believed it, the casual acquaintances. But the closer friends, the ones who'd seen us over the years, they started asking more questions. Sophia's story began falling apart under scrutiny. One of her best friends from college called me a month in. She said she'd watched Sophia's social media become this performance of sadness, posts about healing and growth that felt hollow. She admitted she'd never seen Sophia actually fight for the marriage, just fight to control the narrative around why it ended. By week 5, Sophia requested a meeting through Ms. Jenkins. She wanted closure, wanted to understand. My lawyer advised against it, but I agreed. I wanted it done completely. I wanted to close this chapter without any lingering what-ifs. We met at a coffee shop in Midtown, neutral territory, midday on a Wednesday. She looked tired, makeup couldn't hide it. She started talking before I even sat down. Said she'd had time to think, realized what she'd done wrong, understood she'd taken me for granted. All the things I might have wanted to hear 2 months ago. I let her finish, let her say her piece. Then I said, "Sophia, you told me the door was open. I walked through it. That's all that happened here." She got frustrated. Said I was being cold. Said I wasn't even trying. Said I owed her more after 9 years. I realized in that moment she wanted me to fight for her, to prove she mattered by chasing her, by begging her to take me back. I was done playing that game. She asked what she was supposed to do now. I told her she was supposed to sign the papers and move on, same as me. She looked at me like I was a stranger, which maybe I was to her. Maybe I'd always been. I left that coffee shop, got in my car, and drove back to Caleb's without looking in the rearview mirror. I felt nothing but relief. The divorce finalized 3 months after I left, quick and clean. No kids, and she didn't want to fight once she realized I wasn't coming back, that no amount of tears or apologies would change my mind. I moved into my own place in the city's heart, 1 bedroom with big windows, hardwood floors, a space that was entirely mine. I built a life that didn't require me to compete for attention or apologize for existing. I started going to the gym again, something I'd stopped because Sophia always made comments about how long I was gone. I reconnected with friends I'd lost touch with, guys from college who'd slowly faded because Sophia never wanted to do couple things with them. I took a weekend trip to the mountains by myself, something I'd wanted to do for years, but she'd always shot down because she didn't like hiking. Sophia moved on, too, from what I heard. Started dating someone new within a few months. I hoped for her sake she treated him better than she'd treated me, but I didn't think about it much. She'd wanted me to see life without her attention. Wanted to make me feel small enough that I'd be grateful for whatever scrap she threw my way. But instead, I let her see life without my presence. Without someone willing to bend and accommodate and disappear to make room for her ego. Memory wasn't a reason to return to a place where I'd been diminished. I learned that the hard way. 6 months after I left, I ran into her at a grocery store, just a random Tuesday afternoon. She tried to start a conversation, asked how I was doing. I kept it brief, polite but distant, and walked away. I saw her watching me leave, and I knew she finally understood that I wasn't coming back. The door she told me was open had closed behind me permanently. She wanted me to see life without her attention. I let her see life without my presence. What would you have done in my position?